Well, hey there. Welcome to an episode of the Kim Constable podcast. Nobody cares. Work harder. It has been a hot minute since I've been here. I don't even know how long it's been since I've recorded the podcast. I think it's actually... it's probably about a year now, but I think even before I recorded a couple of episodes a year or so ago, I actually think it was a couple of years before that. So first of all, to my diehard fans, I apologize for not having been here, for the last while, for neglecting you. This has actually been one of the most coveted or asked after things that we have been that people have been requesting is please, Kim, can you bring the podcast back? Because you all just love the podcast. And honestly, I used to love recording the podcast, but it really just takes quite a long time to do it. I have to be honest, because the way I do it, I really like to think about it. I really like to think about the point that I'm going to teach, come up with the stories. It's quite a big investment of time, and I'm not like your average podcaster that's interviewing loads of different people, so it's just easy to do interviews and I can bang out 4 in one day, which is like a month's worth of content. That's not how I do the podcast. I obviously really think about what I'm going to teach, and I like it to be an inductive learning process for you, so that's why I haven't been dedicating the time to it. But actually there's a couple of other reasons why I haven't been dedicating the time to it, which I am going to talk about in today's podcast as well. So, but before we get started into the content, a little bit of housekeeping for you. I want to tell you all about a brand new 5-day challenge that we have starting on October 14th. It is a 5-day fitness and fat loss challenge for women in menopause. Whether you're in perimenopause, you're just thinking about menopause, you're in full-blown perimenopause, or menopause happened for you many, many, many years ago, this challenge is for you. You're absolutely going to love it. I'm going to be teaching every day. We're going to give you workouts. We're going to give you meal plans. It's just going to be absolutely phenomenal. And it's all, of course, completely free. So make sure that you look out for that. If you want to register, pre-register interest for the challenge, then unfortunately to do so, you have to go to, where do you have to go to? I don't even know if we have it on the website. We definitely have it in our Facebook groups, but there will be somewhere you can pre-register for the challenge. Of course, I can't really give you that information right now. I'm sorry, it wasn't very well prepared for this podcast today, clearly. But it is coming up starting October 14th, opens for registration October 7th. So make sure you're on our mailing list. How do you do that? Just go to our website and just download something for free. Just any download at all. You will be on the mailing list and we will send you out details of that brand new challenge. And I really hope that you join us. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, today's episode is called How to Keep Going When All You Want to Do Is Quit. And the reason why I'm recording this particular episode today is because we are in the middle, 1 weekend actually, of 1 week into a 4-week shred challenge. We haven't run a 4-week shred in a long time. And so we decided to revamp the 4-week shred, call it 4-week shred 2.0. So we are 1 week into that challenge at the minute. And I know that the women in the challenge are powering through, they're doing their best, but I know that a lot of them are finding it super hard. And maybe you're in the challenge and you're like, okay, this is like the hardest thing I've ever done. 2 45 minutes of sessions of cardio a day, plus following this calorie macro counted meal plan, plus having to fit in training. It's like the most diet and exercise most of these women have done in a long time. So it is really, really super hard. I completely get it. And I think that whenever you see these challenges advertised, especially our challenges, you see these incredible results by these women and you go, oh my God, I want to join that challenge. I want to get those results. And so you join the challenge and you're all excited and you're in that early stage of uninformed optimism where all you can see are the benefits and you cannot perceive any of the downsides. And then you start to do the challenge and you realize, holy shit, this is much, much fucking harder than I ever thought it was going to be. And the reality of the challenge and what it takes to actually get those results of those women that you have seen kind of hits you up the face. And so I wanted to record this podcast for all of you, any of you who are in any challenge, whether it's my challenge, whether it's someone else's challenge, or maybe you're just struggling with something in your life, maybe you're working towards some other goal, it doesn't have to be a fitness goal. This episode is going to help you. Now, this episode, I guess, also was inspired by a challenge that I'm going through myself at the minute. My life has been challenging, quite challenging really, for the last many, many years. And I keep having these new realizations every time I go through something new in the business, or every time I step up a level in my life, I have a whole new host of challenges that I have to face. And so I just thought maybe me sharing some of my challenges with you will help you with your own challenges. But I was thinking back to a time particularly where it was about 2018. I started my company, The Sculpted Vegan, in 2017. I launched my first program in October 2017. I'd been working on it for about a year, but really pushing hard for it from kind of January of that year. Launched it in October 2017, and then took on a Facebook ads company to help me to scale the program that I had launched, turn it into evergreen. And then from April of 2018, the company really began to take off. And we were selling a $1,000 program. That was our signature program. And the company really started to take off, and we started to sell anywhere between 4 and 12 programs per day. So we were making between $4,000 and $12,000 a day, which was completely wild for me because I'd worked so hard in growing this company, and I couldn't believe it was actually finally taking off. So that first year was it was epic. Like, I learned a lot, I failed a lot, I had a lot of growth. But one of the things that I did was I started to have to take on staff to help me grow the company. And I had a designer who had helped me to build out The Sculpted Vegan and design all the PDFs and the website and that kind of stuff, and the webinar whenever I was launching the company. And he was working with me just on a retainer basis. He wasn't employed by the company. But then after that, I shortly took on a virtual assistant called Flora. She's not with me anymore, but Flora was great. And I took on her. And then I also took on... Who else did I take on? Oh, yes, Vanessa, who was doing my Facebook ads. She was actually working for the company Tier 11 at the time that I had employed to do my Facebook ads. And then I had Jamie came on board as well, who's now my vice president of operations. She has been with me for 6 years. And I had this small core team of people, and then I'd taken on a virtual assistant as well, and I was working with him. And so I had all these people who were now working for me, some of them full-time, some of them part-time, but I had this growing team to help me manage the business. And up until this point, I had done most of the work myself. I had done the Facebook ads from the launch of my first program. I couldn't do any of the design work, or it wasn't worth me investing my time in it, because I just knew that my designs would be shit, and I wanted my company to have a really good visual representation. So I'd never done any of the design work, but I'd been doing a lot of the other work myself. I'd been writing the programs, I'd been filing everything, I'd been doing all the email, uploading and copywriting, and I'd been writing the sales pages, and I had been organizing my time, and I just everything. Whenever you first start a company, you do everything in the beginning, and that is how it should be, because that's you serving your time. That's you putting in your hours to really learn the nuts and bolts of the company. And so, but there was one day I remember I was sitting at my desk. I turned what was my yoga studio into an office at home, and I really set it up as a beautiful office. I put a coffee machine in there, and I had a gorgeous big desk, and I can't even remember what else I put in there, but I made it, into a lovely office space for myself. And that's where I used to work every day. But there were so many things on my to-do list that I needed to do. And I remember most of my time now seemed to be spent, as the company was growing, having meetings with people. And so I would, have a meeting. I would do a bit of work in the morning, whatever, and I would train in the gym, because obviously I was still training. And then I would have a meeting with Alan, the designer, about different things. And then Jamie would, she's in America, so then she would, come on board about 2:00 or whatever, because that was 9 a.m. for her, and I would have a meeting with her. And then I would have a meeting with Vanessa, and then I would have to meet with Flora about something, and then I would have to have a meeting with Chardy, and then actually I brought on a guy called Mark Parker, who made videos and stuff for me, and I brought him on full time as well. And then I would have a meeting with Mark about things, and I would think, I'll get to do my work, the work that I have to do later. But then later would never come, because then I would have to finish work, and I didn't have a chef at the time. I didn't have a chef at the time. So I had to then cook dinner for the family. And so I would have to finish work and then go down and cook dinner. And I remember this went on for a while, and I began to get increasingly frustrated. I remember one day just going, feeling like almost panicky. I was like, oh my God. Like, I just don't have any time anymore. I have no more time. I have no more time to do any work. Like, I'm not getting any work done because I don't have any time to do any work. And I was sitting at my desk at the time and I was beginning to feel slightly panicky because I didn't have any time I felt like I had no, like, don't get me wrong, the company was still growing and it was still, I was still doing whatever I needed to do, but I felt like I didn't have any quiet time, any thoughtful time. I didn't have any time just to sit and write and think and plan and do strategy, which is what I had been doing most of the last couple of years up until this point. And I remember sitting one day and I had this realization. I was feeling really panicky and I was like, oh my God, just don't have any time to do any work. And then suddenly this realization hit me and I was like, oh my God, this is my job now. My job is not doing the work. My job is now meeting with the people who do the work. My job is not now to do all of the work like it had been up until now. I felt like I was falling behind because I wasn't doing the work. But what I hadn't actually realized was the work was still being done. It just wasn't being done by me because I was starting to build a team. And so my work was managing the team of people who were doing the work. And I was getting exactly what I had asked for. Like, this was the next level that I had wanted to go to. I had wanted to grow the company into a multi-million-dollar brand, and we were well on our way to our first million. I made actually just over $1 million. I think it was just under $1,100,000 in my first year, my first 12 months of business. And so from October 2017 to October 2018, I did $1 million in sales. And so this was kind of just before that. And I remember I just had this realization. I was like, Kim, you are about to make your first $1 million. And this is what it takes to make $1 million. Like, there ain't no one out there making millions of dollars who's doing all the work themselves. You're getting exactly what you asked for. And I remember whenever I realized that, I was like, oh my God, this is what it takes. And I just suddenly started to laugh and I just completely relaxed. And I became I became much more chilled out after that, because I thought, I have these incredibly talented people who I've employed to come on and do the work for me. And why would I micromanage them? Like, why would I employ them to do a job and then do the work for them? And so after that, I realized that I just had to relax into starting to be a CEO, because part of being a CEO, part of building a big multi-million-dollar company was actually employing people and then just letting them get on with doing the work. And so that really helped me, I guess, with the next stage of my growth, because I stopped trying to do the work. And of course I did what was necessary, because there were things that only I could do still in the business. But rather than trying to do everything and manage everything, I just allowed people to get onto to get on with doing their jobs. And so the company grew and grew, and I started to make a hell of a lot of money. And I mean a lot of money. Like, we were turning over during COVID. I pivoted the company quite quickly. We did $1 million in our first year from 2017 to 2018. We did 2.4 million from 2018 to 2019. And then during COVID, we did 4 million in 2020. And then we did 6 million in 2021. So the company, in 2021, we did 6 million. So the company grew really, really quickly, but I didn't actually have a huge amount of staff, and I didn't have a huge amount of overheads. And I was still working from home right up until, I think up until 2020, I was still working from home. In 2020, I took an office. It was actually my husband's office in Hollywood that he didn't need anymore because of how he had restructured his company. So I actually took on one room in the office, and then I took on, it was two big rooms on a middle floor in an office building, and I took on both of those. But the rent was tiny. Like, it was really, really minimal, and I really didn't have a lot of overheads. And even though I took on more staff, I didn't have a huge amount of overheads. Most of my overheads went on Facebook marketing. I would have spent about $2 million a year on Facebook marketing to make about $6 million. And so I had a shitload of money. Like, I really did. I was so fucking rich during those years, because I didn't have a lot of overheads, and I was able to, I was able to take a lot of money out of the company, for personal use. The company was making a load of money. And even though I was investing more money back into the company, I went through a period, like a real lush period, where I was enjoying having all this cash. You know, I'd worked so hard for it. I tried to start an internet marketing company for years, even though I made $1 million in my first year. I'd been 6 years trying to start an internet company. And so I really, really enjoyed those years. Like, it was absolutely, you know, phenomenal. Now, at the end, then in 2021, I have to try and think of the years now, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, in 2021, I decided that I was going to build an app. And so I then decided to build an app for the company. And my stepsister is a beautiful girl called Susan, and she was dating a guy called Ross, right? And Ross, by all intents and purposes, was the most incredible app designer. And he was working for a company, but he was designing apps on the side. And so he quoted me quite a large sum of money to create an app for the company. And then as Ross started to create the app for the company, and I realized just how fucking talented he was, I thought, I need this guy full time on my team. Now, Alan, my designer at the time, had decided that he was going to go back to being freelance. Alan, as the company grew and the team grew, and Alan stopped, you know, being accountable to me, and he was then, you know, reporting into Jamie, my director of ops. It just wasn't a direction that Alan wanted to go to with the company. He much preferred, he enjoyed it much more whenever it was just him and I, you know, running the company together and working together. And he didn't enjoy being part of a big kind of corporate team. And he was working full time for me as well. So he decided he would go back to being a freelancer. So I did need to find someone to replace him. So I went to Ross and I said to Ross, would you be willing to, you know, come on board full time with me? And Ross was like, oh, I don't know, because, you know, I'm really enjoying where I'm at and I'm earning a hell of a lot of money. And I was like, I'll match or better, whatever it is that you're making, you know, come on board. And, you know, we always had this thought that we would do something together. We would build something together that was going to be amazing. So he agreed to come on board as creative director, and that was in I think it was very early it was in the mid, I think it was October 2021. He agreed to come on board full time. And there was one day we were just sitting chatting, and we were talking about the app and whatever, and would we, you know, revamp it, or how would we build the app, or how would we do whatever. And I just said to him, do you know what? I had this idea. I tried to build a couple of different companies teaching people how to be successful online. I had the $1 Million Mentor. It did $1 million in its first year. Then I launched Digital Marketing Blueprint. We did $500,000 at launch in Digital Marketing Blueprint. And I was starting to teach business as well as do the Sculpted Vegan. But the problem was, people kept, you know, they would join these programs and they would follow my exact advice, but then they would say, oh, you know what, I'm struggling because I don't have the money. I need to hire a designer. I need to hire, you know, a web designer. I need to get videos made. I have to, you know, find someone to design my PDFs. I have to do this. I have to do this. Even though I was teaching them exactly what they had to do to be successful, the way that I had been successful, the barriers to entry were too big. So people would come to me and they would say, Kim, what do I have to do to be to have your success, right? And I would say, right, well, you have to do this and do this and do this and do this. And they would go, oh my God, no, it's far too much. And so people just didn't do it because the barriers to entry were too high. So one day I was sitting chatting to Ross and I said to him, this is the biggest thing that I get asked. People say to me, Kim, how do I build a fitness business like yours? How do I build an online company? And I said, but when I tell them there's just too much, they can't do it. I said, I would love to create an app which has every single component of my business built into it. I said, people are using their smartphones every single day. You know, they're uploading to Instagram for free. They're putting out all of their content. They're already recording on their phones. They've got everything that they need in their smartphone. I would love to create a company where people can literally build a business doing what they're already doing in fitness using their smartphone. And Ross was like, yeah, I can really see that and whatever. And so he started chatting about the idea. We were sitting chatting, and we got really excited about this idea. This was in January 2022. So we got really excited about this idea, and then we brought Laura in, my director of training, and Christina was there, and we were having this brainstorming session, and I was like, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I want it to be for all online business, but I really want it to be like just for fitness. And I was like, only for fitness. And we were like, yeah, let's call it like only for fitness. I was like, no, what about only fitness? And so that's where the idea for Only Fitness, this new business that I'm building, came from. Now that was and the reason why I'm telling you story is I'm going to become a parent in a little minute. And so we started to build that. Ross was like, yeah, I can have that in like 3 months. This was 3 years ago, just FYI. So Ross was like, I can have that built in 3 months. So the idea for Only Fitness came about. Ross started working full time in Only Fitness. Rather than working on the app, we decided we were going to go full into this Only Fitness because I knew that this business solved a real need. And just as a little FYI on the side, for those of you who follow me for business content, one of the biggest things about starting a business is you have to be able to identify a real need in the market. And how do you identify a real need in order to be successful? It has to be something that people are asking for. It was my most commonly asked question. People would say to me, how can I do what you have done? Kim, can I meet with you for a coffee? People in Belfast would message me and say, can I meet with you for a coffee to pick your brains? Because I want to start an online business like yours. People wanted to start an online business like mine. I had tried to help them twice and I gave them exactly step by step what they needed to do in Million Dollar Mentor and in Digital Marketing Blueprint. But still, there were very few, in fact, 0 Kim Constables running around there starting fitness businesses. Why? Because the barriers to entry were too big. It was too much of a leap financially and, with everything they had to do to go from where they were now to where they wanted to be. So I knew that if I could minimize that, if I could minimize the amount that they had to spend, the amount of time it would take, the amount of investment, financially and in time and whatever, to practically nothing, that would be a super valuable product. And I cannot wait. Only Fitness is so close to launching now and I cannot wait for you guys to try it because it is fucking amazing. So anyway, I digress. So we had this idea for Only Fitness. So this was in 2021. So I started plowing everything into Only Fitness. I realized that this could really be a phenomenal company. And I didn't even really think about how incredible it could be until 2 things happened. The first one was that Kayla Itseens, who is an Australian fitness entrepreneur, she founded an app called the Sweat app. She used to have like Bikini Bodies or something, I think it was called, or can't remember. She had some kind of fitness program years ago. She started the Sweat app and she sold the app for $400 million. And I remember Ross telling me this. He said, did you hear Kayla Itseens sold her app for $400 million? And it was only then that I realized the power of a software app like this has, the amount of money that it can make. And so I thought, well, you know what? If Kayla Itseens can sell her app for 400 million, I'm going to sell mine for $1 billion. I was like, let's just make $1 billion. At the time I was like 43 or something. What am I now? 45. So it was 42. And I remember thinking, I'm going to sell my app for $1 billion. And I decided that I was going to be the youngest self-made female billionaire in the UK. And actually, there are no self-made female billionaires in Ireland. There's only one in the UK. She owns betting shops. And when I say self-made, I mean they didn't inherit it. They didn't, marry it or whatever. I think there's not one in Ireland. So I want to be the first self-made female billionaire in Ireland. I just set myself that goal because why not, right? Why not be a billionaire? And my husband was like, Kim, do you realize what $1 billion actually is? So I was like, no, I know, but aim for the stars or aim for the moon, because if you miss, you may land among the stars. So I set this goal that I wanted to be the youngest female, or not the youngest, but the first female billionaire in Ireland and the second in the UK. And so anyway, we started pushing hard towards this goal. Now, let me tell you something. It's not easy or cheap to build a software app. Like Ross started working full time on that app, which meant that I had to replace him in the company. So I had to bring on another designer and we brought on Brigitte full time. Brigitte is fucking amazing. So we brought on Brigitte full time. And so then we also needed to bring on other staff. And so the company kept growing. And then I found Natalie, my PA, who she's working as my PA at the minute, but her role was never supposed to be my PA. She was leaving her current position and I knew that she was super talented and I needed someone to come in and help me manage Only Fitness. So I offered her a job. Actually, the only job that I had was in customer service at the time, but I sold her the dream and I was like, this is what I want for you. I want you to come in and work on Only Fitness and, whenever it launches, but you'll have to do this in the meantime, but you'll be investing in the future. So she agreed to come work for the company, for this promise of the future. And then she started working as my PA because the fastest way to grow in the company is actually to work as my PA because you get to work directly with me every single day. So she started working as my PA and so I brought Natalie on, I brought Ross on, I started bringing on all these extra staff to work on Only Fitness, but also to prepare for the future because it takes a long time to really cultivate a person, to cultivate, a member of staff and into, kind of what you need them to be for the role. So where am I going with this? Well, every single thing in the business I started putting into Only Fitness. So rather than really focusing on the growth of the Sculpted Vegan, which is what I've been doing before, I now set my sights on Only Fitness, which was going to be my $1 billion company. So the Sculpted Vegan not only now had to pay for the Sculpted Vegan, but the Sculpted Vegan also had to pay for Only Fitness. My wage bill went through the roof. I actually then took on a front-end designer to assist Ross. His salary, we hear this, his salary was $16,000 a month. I was like, I'm in the wrong fucking business. $16,000 a month. That's how much developers, coders get paid. Like Ross writes the code, by the way. Like he writes it. He doesn't download it from the internet. Ross actually writes the code for the things. So like to find someone like Ross to come work for your company, it's like hen's teeth. The man is an absolute nutter genius. And so Ross and Marius worked very closely together for a year. So I took on this $16,000 extra payment in the company, as well as all the staff. My overhead shot through the roof. It was actually we got to the point where it was costing me about $170,000 a month to run the company. So I went from being really rich and having no overheads to having a $170,000 bill to pay. The company had to find the money for every single month. And it was, and so anyway, what happened was I took my eye off the ball. In 2023, I really did take my eye off the ball with how much the company was costing to run. I had taken on loads of different staff. I mean, we were overstaffed, to be honest, because we thought that Only Fitness was only going to take about a year to build. It's now been nearly 3 years and we're ready to launch, but it took far longer than we ever thought it would. So I'd taken on all these extra staff. I then bought this massive office building. We have like a 6,000 square foot office building now over 2 floors. And so I bought a building in the middle of as well. I had to refurb the whole building, move everybody in here. So I took on more overheads as well. I'm the breadwinner at home, so I still had to pay for, all of the things at home. Ryan does earn an income, but not anywhere near what I earn, and so I am the breadwinner at home. So then I also have this horse yard which I'd built in the middle of it as well. So we have 5 competition horses, 2 full-time staff, and a part-time staff up at the yard, plus these really expensive horses. And I bought like a big, massive 18-ton horse lorry, and I started eventing and whatever. So I suddenly realized that. So last year, in about it was about July last year, I suddenly realized that I was hurtling towards bankruptcy. And I mean hurtling towards bankruptcy, because I really had taken my eye off the ball with the finances. And I always say failure is how you learn, and failure really is how you learn. But I realized I'd taken my eye off the ball with the finances in terms of I thought that Only Fitness was going to be launching in September 2023. So I had kind of geared everything towards that. And that's why I had invested so much money. And in July of 2023, I realized I was hurtling towards bankruptcy. I think in September, I think it was September, we had no money left in the bank in September. Like we literally had 2 months of cash flow. And the Sculpted Vegan had been doing well and turning over money, and we'd been, and had really big launches and whatever. And it was great. But because I'd taken my eye off the ball and I really wasn't focusing hard on growing that side of the company, it was still paying the bills, but I wasn't focusing on it. I sat down one day and I realized, I was like, holy shit, we run out of money in 2 months. And so I had like this mini panic attack, because here's the thing about the company, the way it was now. Years ago, if we were ever short in cash, which we were quite a lot because we run pretty lean in the company, and obviously I've always reinvested the money as well. So, but I had always been able to kind of do a launch, right, of like a $97 program or something, or we'd always had these different launches, and they would have brought in, our $97 program launches would have made about £150,000, so about $180,000 in net profit. And so that would have been enough. That would actually that was like 3 or 4 months cash flow, right? But what I hadn't really looked at was this monster that I had created. I had been planning for the future, thinking the future was coming sooner than it was. And I'd invested in staff and buildings and all these different, and softwares and all these different things. And I suddenly looked at my bank account in July and realized I was hurtling towards bankruptcy. My overheads were about $180,000 a month, and one $97 launch, which is what we had planned for September, wasn't going to cut it, wasn't even going to pay 1 month's wages. And that it was for the first time in my life, I was actually scared. And I mean, I was scared. I was facing bankruptcy. I was facing having to, tell all my staff that they didn't have a job, because you have to understand, I have staff at home which enable me to work. So I have a full-time housekeeper, a full-time chef, and a part-time housekeeper at home. Plus I pay all the bills at home. Then at the yard, I have 2 full-time staff and a part-time staff at the yard, plus all of the horses to pay for and all of the competition fees and the servicing of the lorry and the trailers and all the rest of it. And then I have the Sculpted Vegan to service as well here. So I have all of the staff and everything that costs to run the office and the buildings and insurance and decorating and all the rest of it. And then I have Only Fitness to pay for as well. So the Sculpted Vegan actually looks after 4 different companies, and I do as well. Of course, I have to manage all the staff within the different facets of the business. And I looked at my bank balance in July and I realized I was running out of money. And not only was I running out of money, but I didn't even have anything up my sleeve that I didn't have any way of getting out of it. Like what I had always done with a quick launch, or, we could do a quick product launch, turn it around quickly. I realized this wasn't going to work this time, because it wasn't going to bring in enough money. I needed to bring in millions, or at least hundreds and hundreds of thousands, to be able to get us through the next however many months. I just, like, one product launch of a $97 shred wasn't going to cut it anymore. And so anyway, I spent many a sleepless night. It was actually one of the darkest times in my life that I can remember. Genuinely, it was one of the darkest, most stressful times. I started getting up every single day at 4 a.m. I was determined I was going to figure out how to do this. And I knew one of the things I have learned is that when I'm really, really struggling and I don't know what to do, instead of panicking, if I just slow everything down and I take my time and I take my time to figure out the different options, that something will come to me. An answer will come to you when you least expect it. And it'll just suddenly, you'll get an answer, you'll get an idea. And this is what happens to me. I just latch onto it and I go, right, I know that this is going to work. And so I decided that I was going to launch a 4-week program. I knew that we had to launch more than one, right? We had to launch twice, 2 or 3 times before Christmas. We're now in July. We're now in August, actually, right? So we've got September, October, November, December, 4 months left of the year. And I knew that one launch wasn't going to cut it. It had to be a couple of launches, but I also knew I didn't have enough time to create a longer program or a bigger program, like a 6-month program or whatever, because I just didn't have the time frame. The team wouldn't have had the time to create it. So I sat down and I came up with this idea for a Grand Slam offer. Now, it's not my idea. I actually got the idea from Alex Ramosi. Alex is a friend of mine, and I messaged him and I was like, okay, I'm reading your book and it's fucking epic. I've never read it before, but I'm really going to do a Grand Slam offer here. So I came up with the idea of a Grand Slam offer, and I created a Grand Slam offer, and we launched and I worked harder than I've ever worked in my life before. I was literally existing on 6 hours sleep a night, which is not very much for me because I'm a solid 8 hours girl. But I was so stressed. I just did not know how on earth I was going to come through this, because whenever you have, I employ about 40 staff worldwide. Whenever you have that amount of people, and that includes part-time people and freelancers and whatever, but about 40 staff worldwide. And whenever you have that amount of people dependent on you for their income, it's a fucking scary place to be whenever you think that you don't have enough to pay them. And it's an enormous amount of responsibility. So I pulled it out of the bag. We launched the 4-week Shredded Body. I did a 5-day challenge to launch it, and we created a Grand Slam offer, and we made, I think, quite a lot of money. I can't even remember how much. I think we did about $600,000 in sales, in net revenue, and I think that we walked away with I can't even remember, maybe $450,000 in net profit, maybe less than that actually. I honestly can't remember the exact numbers. I don't think we did 600 actually. I think we did about 450,000 maybe. But anyway, I worked my absolute ass off. I was constantly in the office. I was coaching. I literally took every single ounce of energy that I had and I infused it into my company. And I had been under so much pressure. And at the end of that launch, I knew that we had to turn around and do the whole thing again, because that wasn't enough to even get us out of the hole that we were in. And I remember I was sitting in the office one night, and it was dark because it was October, and we were in the middle of the launch, in the middle of the promotional period, after the 5-day challenge, for the 4-week shredded body. And I'd been asking people to pay $500. I created a Grand Slam offer, but it was $500 for a 4-week program. So those of you who are in the 4-week shred at the minute, you're like, it was so expensive. It was $197. Well, back then they were $497 for 4-week programs. So we were right in the middle of the launch. Everyone had worked their ass off. I was sitting in my office. It was dark. It was raining. Everyone had gone home. I didn't go home every night until about 8 o'clock. I was here from early in the morning until late at night. And I was sitting here, and I remember my financial controller, Elaine, messaging me and saying, oh, Kim, good news. We now have enough money to get us through to November. Now, this is October, okay? Or September, maybe it was late September. I was emotionally and physically exhausted. I had busted my balls to get to this point, because there had been we actually had then all the prize money as well to pay for Extreme Body Makeover, and that was $190,000 of prize money. And so that's why I just really took my eye off the ball with it. And so we had to pay the $190,000 of prize money, and we had to, obviously pay the enormous bill that we had every month as well, just to keep the company going. And I remember her saying to me, really well done. We now have enough money to get us through to November. And I remember going, November? Is that all? I was like, only November? And I was exhausted. I can't tell you how exhausted I was. Every fibre of my soul was tired. I was tired from the weight of carrying the pressure, the emotional pressure, the physical pressure. Like, I can't even tell you how hard it is sometimes to be in the position that I'm in. There's no one to talk to. I mean, my best friends work for me in the company, and I do share, I'm very honest with them about what it takes and whatever, but I can't put the pressures of what I go through on them. It's very rare that I'm 100% honest with the people that work with me about, what it is that it takes, because I don't want to worry anybody else. I don't want to, anyone else to ever feel like their job's in jeopardy or whatever. And it's just more of it's a silent struggle being a CEO. Like, it really is. People think that it's easy. They think I make it look so easy. And so they don't realize how hard it is. It's not that it isn't heavy. It's just that I carry it well. And I talk to my husband a lot. He's great, but he's a man, and he only has a limited capacity for conversation. My coach, Nancy, is just fucking amazing. Like, she is the person that I turn to in times of struggle, and she really had helped me. She really had helped me a lot. But I just was like, I was really, 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 really depressed whenever I heard that. And I remember sitting in my office, and the pressure of everything that I had been going through, the pressure of turning the company around, of making that money, of knowing we had to do it again. And I knew that we would do it again, do another launch immediately, exactly the same launch, different product. I knew that I would get through it, but the pressure of getting through it was just crushing. And I just broke down, and I started to cry, and I was here by myself, and I just had a real pity party for myself for, like, I don't know for how long. I put my head on my hands, sitting on the couch in my office, and I just cried, and I cried and cried and cried and cried. And then something happened while I was crying, and I don't know what it was, but I think I thought to myself, I don't want to be a billionaire anymore. Like, I think I was like having this real pity party, and I was like, I don't want to be a billionaire anymore. And then something happened when I had that thought, and I was like, hang on a wee second, Kim. And I remember I just stopped crying, and I had this realization. I was like, you want to be a billionaire. Like, you've openly said it. You've talked about it in your podcast. You've told everybody, right, I'm going to be a billionaire. I'm going to be a billionaire. Kim's going around, oh yeah, she's going to be a fucking billionaire. Like, and you told everyone you want to be a billionaire. And I just was like, this is what it takes. And this is what it takes to be a billionaire. I was like, what? Do you know why? This is what I said to myself. Do you know why there's very few billionaires in the world? Because no one is willing to do what it takes. No one, very few people are actually willing to do what it takes, because we see people who are billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and I can't even think of any other billionaires off the top of my head, but these people who are billionaires, we see them and all we see is their big yachts and their life and their wealth. And we think, oh, even I do sometimes. You think, wouldn't it be so lovely to have that much money where you never needed to worry? Well, let me tell you something. I have had a lot of money for a long time and my worries are greater than they were when I was poor. Far, 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 far greater. So what makes me think that Jeff Bezos doesn't have any worry just because he has billions of dollars? He might not have any money worries, but let me tell you, he has a lot more fucking worry. There's a lot more worry than just money worries. I can walk into Belfast and I can buy anything that I want at any time within reason. I can go shopping in New York. My husband and I went shopping in New York last November. One of my goals of making money was just I wanted to be able to go out and buy whatever I wanted. We went shopping in New York. We went to all of the big, Bergdorf Goodman and Macy's and whatever. And I think we must have spent easy $10,000, $15,000 in a day, maybe $20,000, like just buying, clothes and different things. And I remember walking around thinking, oh my God, I can literally buy whatever I want. And it was such an incredible feeling because that is what I'd always wanted to be able to do. So, you take away that desire whenever you have money, because you can't just walk in and buy like a, $3,000 dress or a $5,000 dress or an $1,800 sweater or whatever. And you take that away. But let me tell you, see what you take on the other side. It's fucking massive. And so I remember sitting there and I lifted my head out of my hands in my office and I was like, this is what it takes. This is what it takes, Kim. This is what it takes. You're getting everything that you asked for. Everything that you asked for. This is what it takes to be a billionaire. Why do you want it to be easy? Why? It was almost like I was giving myself this wee motivational pep talk, and it wasn't like I was trying to talk myself out of it. I really had this massive integration. It was like, why did you think it would be easy? Why do you want it to be easy? If you want to be a billionaire, Kim, this is what it takes. And you know what? I had this massive surge of energy. I had this massive, I can do this. I can get through this. This is what it takes. This is what I wanted. I'm getting everything that I wanted. And I remember I decided, that's it. I'm going home. And I went home and I jumped into the car. I couldn't wait to get home and tell my husband. And I, ran into the house or whatever, went in the house and he's lying watching Netflix with the fire lit. Not a care in the world because, Kim always takes care of everything. And I went in, I was like, Ryan, wait till you hear. And he pressed pause on his show. He was like, what? So I told him the story. I was like, I was in my office and I've been crying. And I'm like, Elaine says to me, you've enough money till November. And I'm like, only November. And then I realized this is what it takes. I was like, the reason I'm in this position isn't because I'm shit with money, isn't because I've overspent or because I've been, careless or whatever. The reason I'm in this position is because I've been investing in a bigger future. I've been taking on more staff, more overheads. I've been building this company, Only Fitness, at the same time as the Sculpted Vegan. What I've done is fucking amazing, actually. I was like, but this is what it takes, Ryan. This is what it takes. Why do I want it to be easier? And Ryan's like looking at me going, okay, great. Yeah, great, Kim. Like, woohoo, well done. And I'm like, this man thinks I'm completely crazy. So anyway, I went into the kitchen and I had dinner and I went to bed and I got up the next morning with a renewed sense of enthusiasm. We then turned around, we did we launched another program pretty shortly afterwards. We did another $400,000, maybe $450,000 in that one as well. And then we did a Black Friday deal and then we pre-sold our January shred and Christmas. And I made enough money in those couple of months to get us through to the following March. Now, we did start to run out of money again in March, but then we launched Extreme Body Makeover and we did 1.3 million with Extreme Body Makeover. And then we did other meal plans and programs and whatever all throughout the year. And so the cash then started to flow into the company really well because I knew that I would never allow myself to get into that position ever again. But why am I telling you this story about my particular experience? Because big goals require big sacrifices. There is no other way to get there. If your life is super hard at the minute, it's because you're playing a big game. If you're on the Stairmaster listening to this and you're in one of my programs maybe and you're like crying because it's, it's like you have another 45 minutes of cardio to do later on in the day, or because, oh my God, I have to fit this in and whatever. Well, here's what the reality is. If you want your life to be easier, set the bar lower. Set the bar lower. You're getting everything you asked for. I realized in that moment that I wanted to be a billionaire. I'd put that out into the universe. If you believe in the universe or God or whatever, I had stated that as my intention. And I'd said, this is what I want. And you know what? Oh, there's my Alexa talking to me. Apologies, telling me she doesn't know that. So Alexa clearly doesn't know that this is what it takes. But like, this is what it takes. If I wanted my life to be easier, I shouldn't have said I wanted to be a billionaire. I'd put it out there to the universe and I had said, I want to be a billionaire. So you know what? I was setting up my life to get to my goal of being a billionaire. And then I was crying because it was so hard. It was so hard. But that's only because I didn't realize this is what it takes to be a billionaire. So here's my message to you. If you're crying at the minute internally or having a little pity party or a little suffer because this is what it takes, set the bar lower. Like, you might have seen someone from one of my programs, assuming many of you from the 4-week shred or whatever are listening to this, you might have seen someone in one of my programs with the most epic results. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm going to do that program. And I want those results. And you start doing the program and then you get like a week or two into it and you're like, oh, this is really hard. I'm not really sure I want to do this. But that's only because you didn't realize that this is what it takes. See that person who you saw who had those epic results? She probably did more than you're doing right now. And that's why she got those results. Because having something phenomenal takes a lot of work. It's a pain that you're choosing because you've set your intention. You've said, I want that. And when you say, I want that, you know what the universe does? The universe delivers and goes, okay, let's get you that. And then they start giving you all the things that, you need to get there. And you're like, this is so hard and this isn't fair. And I didn't think it would be so hard. And there's so much cardio and it's so hard to keep my heart rate in the fat burning zone. And I'm so hungry. You're like, not you, of course, the other people do this, not you and not me. I've never done this ever, but I've heard that other people have done it. And so those other people who do this, they start bitching and whinging and complaining over the things that, are hard. And the universe is scratching its head and going, hang on a wee second, but you said this is what you wanted. Do you not want this now? Like, I'm giving you everything you wanted. Why are you whinging? We're only whinging because we didn't realize it would be so hard. I thought getting to a billionaire would be easy. Stupid me. How naive, Kim. There are no billionaires in the world who did not work their nuts off to get there. Just like there's no stage athletes who did not work their nuts off to get there. There's nobody with a six-pack who did not do 1,500,000 crunches to get there. You know what I mean? There's nobody who has a phenomenal, muscular, beautiful body that did not work their ass off to get there. People look at me and they go, Kim, you're 45, you're aging backwards. Like, you look amazing. Like, your body's getting better every year. How do you do it? I go, I work really, really, really hard. And then they ask me, I put up videos like of me squatting and stuff. And I go, Kim, I want your legs. Oh, I really want your glutes. Oh my God, I can't believe how much your glutes have grown. So I go, well, here's what it takes. And they go, oh, well, do I really have to work that hard? Like, I have a knee problem. I have a back problem. Like, I'm scared to go to failure. Like, I don't have a spotter. And I'm like, yeah, well, this is what it takes to get what I've got. So, if you don't want it, then don't do it. But unfortunately, this is what it takes. And so what you have to realize is the bigger the goal, the bigger the pain to get there. There really is no other way. And so I know plenty of people who have okay bodies and okay jobs and okay incomes and okay lives. And they don't really have a lot of pain in their life. They don't really have a lot of pressure in their life because they've set the bar very low. They haven't set themselves a goal that's a real stretch. And they're just satisfied with living I want to say mediocre life, and that makes it sound like I'm being derogatory, and I'm not. But like, really, there's, and for some people that is their limit. They're like, no, my life is hard. Like, just keeping down a 9-to-5 job is hard for me, and having to cook the food for my kids and whatever. Like, this is hard. I'm like, yeah, but you have to understand that even if, if you've chosen to live in a house in a certain neighborhood and have a certain type of job that's in the city to give you a certain amount of income, it's because you've set your intention that you want to have this kind of life. And this is what it takes to have the life that you're living. It's called being at cause. It's recognizing that the choices that what you decided you wanted is shaping the choices you have to make to get there. You're choosing in every single moment because this is what it takes to have what it was you said you wanted. And if you want something different, choose something different. Do something different. Set the bar lower. Just stop expecting it to be easy. This is what I realized. I was like, why do I want it to be easy? I want to be a billionaire. I want to have $100 million company first. Why do I want it to be easy? And see, in that moment, whenever I had that realization, everything for me shifted. I stopped suffering. I stopped whinging. I stopped bitching. I've gone through some really hard times since there. Like, I'm going through a very, very tough time at the minute, a real transitional period in the business and with staff. And I'm going through some really, really, really hard times. And the staff, my closest staff to me keep saying, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Something quite significant happened this week. It was very stressful. But they're like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And they're like, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, I promise you I'm totally okay. And everyone can understand why these real shitty, hard things keep happening. And I'm still okay. And I'm like, it's because this is what it takes, guys. I'm like, I've been through this before. I have now been sued. I've been taken to an industrial tribunal. I've been, people keep reporting me to different authorities and whatever and trying to take the company down. It's never worked. We've never been fined. We've never even been, anything. But people are talking shit about me online. I have just so many issues. But see, the bigger your company gets, the more issues you have. I remember Mark Zuckerberg once saying, if you're not being sued, you're not big enough. And that's what I always talk about haters. I'm like, if you don't have haters online, you're not doing anything worthwhile. You need to, if you're doing something worthwhile, you're going to have people who are going to hate you and talk shit about you. It's just par for the course. So all of the issues that I'm having as I'm growing, I now expect. I'm like, if my life's too easy, there's something wrong. I'm like, I'm not growing fast enough. If my life's too easy and it's not painful and hard and there's not a lot of failure and a lot of stress and a lot of difficult situations to navigate, but I'm clearly on the wrong path, because the path that I've chosen, the path to being a billionaire, is harder than it is easier. Every so often I might get like an easy day or an easy week or a little period where I feel like things are really, really good at the minute, and it'll last a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks. And then the shit hits the fan again. But that's part and parcel of being in business. It's part and parcel of going where I want to go. If I want to make people happy, I should sell ice cream. But I don't sell ice cream. I sell really hard fitness programs. So if you are in a situation at the minute, or if you're having a hard time right now, just remember it's because you're on your way to something great that you said you wanted, something better than you had before. And if you always remind yourself of that, it makes it so much easier to get through the hard times. So there you have it. First podcast episode back in a long, long time. And I promise you, I'm going to keep them coming. I am going to schedule some time in every week. Now I have this beautiful new office upstairs, which is really quiet. And I have my really great microphone set up, and I have my podcasting setup is just perfect. Now that I have all that, I'm just going to keep rocking through the podcast, because I know that you guys want them. And actually part of the reason why I started doing this podcast again was because I was on Podbean yesterday looking for an episode to share with a customer, and it said that we have just shy of 1 million downloads. And I was like, oh my God, I only did the podcast for 2 years. And then I haven't done it for 2 years since. And we have 1 million downloads of the podcast. I was like, holy shit. Like and I think there's like 100, there's like 100 episodes, or just over 100 episodes. So that's nearly 100,000 downloads per episode. That's absolutely amazing. So it made me go, God, people really do love my podcast. Maybe I should just record it again. So there you are, podcast episode, whatever number this is. Hope you enjoyed it. Definitely there's going to be more coming. If you would like me to talk about something in particular on the podcast, I would love it if you would leave a review wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on iTunes, whether it's on Podbean or Spotify or whatever. Tell me what you want to hear on the podcast by leaving a review. The reviews help to boost the podcast up the ratings, but they also help me to see in one place. I can scan through in one place and see what people are asking for. So if you want me to talk about something in particular on the podcast, or you have a really good episode for me, please do write it in a review, and I do read them all. And I think next week I'm going to be discussing menopause, because I recently started HRT. And it's been an absolute and utter game changer for me. So I'm going to call it menopause, herpes, and HRT. And you'll understand why next week whenever I talk about it. So that's going to be the episode for next week. Guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. It's been so wonderful to connect with you all again. I have enjoyed this immensely. You've no idea, absolutely immensely. I'm going to go and play tennis with my kids now. I do not play tennis, FYI, but my youngest loves me doing stuff with them, and they play tennis they have a tennis lesson every Sunday at 1 p.m. and the tennis coach is going to absolutely piss his pants when he sees me arriving in with my tennis racket. But I'm going to go and swing the racket and hit the ball and look like a dick. And my kids are going to enjoy every single moment of it. And so I hope you have an awesome rest of the day, an awesome rest of the week, wherever you're listening to this. And I will chat with you again next week for another episode of the Kim Constable podcast. Remember, nobody cares, work harder, stop suffering, pull up your big girl pants, get on with it. Everything you asked for, you're getting. So stop whinging, get on with it, and great things are coming your way. Okay, love you all so much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.